Hey, oh, damn it. I told myself I wasn't going to do it. I was going to think the saddest memories. Hey, guys, welcome to another episode of Nightmare Road. I, of course, am one of your hosts here with the very mysterious and fabulous.
SOS.
And today we're going to kick it back to the old school ways. It's just me and you today.
Yeah, yeah.
And what's today's topic?
We're gonna kind of do myths and legends, but it's like legendary curses or legends that could lead to a curse. I thought it would be kind of fun.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is these are topics that a lot of people now cover, like, we're going to learn about curses. And then there's people that are more like, how would I call that? Like, they're so like involved in like the old ways, they won't even mention curses because they believe that mentioning a curse could trigger a different type of curse. And, you know, and I just wish that we lived in an environment. See, yes and no, but I say that because it's easy to say, but like I wish that we lived more in an environment where people still believe that or still behave that way, you know?
I guess yes and no. My ex-husband was a little bit like that. He believed if you talked about stuff, it would bring it to you. I don't at all. I'm like
Yeah.
that. It's all will and intent, you know.
Yeah, I've heard that. They're like, don't what was one of that? Oh, don't speak it into existence, you know?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
So, okay, so this is so crazy. So my grandmother, if it would start to rain and then like thunder, she was like, okay, who was thinking about that, or who was saying, basically like blaming someone, like who was saying we're gonna have bad weather today. It wasn't just
Oh, yeah.
the climate, because it's crazy because in Central America, um it's a cloudy day, and you're like, oh, it's gonna rain today. Over there it could be clear skies, but there's always like a slight breeze. So like all of a sudden storm clouds just roll in and then just thunderstorm for days, like, and then it just stops and it clear sunny. So I would kind of see why people would say that it was like a curse, because when you live in an environment where it rains a lot that way, it's just, it's not a good time. Unless you're one of those people like my mother, where she can sleep through thunderstorms with a big loud thunder, and then over there the roofs are made out of aluminum, so like these aluminum sheets.
Oh.
So whenever it's windy, it just it's like shakes, and
Ooh.
she would sleep right through that, and she was just, she's like, wow, I slept perfect, and everybody's just like wide awake.
I like a good thunderstorm. I do. What I can't sleep through is when I lived in Texas and in the South when it's tornado season, you know?
Yeah.
When those storms that come rolling in, man, you're like glued to the TV set. But then it was the TV set. We didn't have smartphones. And you had a weather radio.
Yes.
And so yeah, it would just and go start going crazy. And then I remember one time we had a tornado coming like straight for the house, and me being me, I'm not a religious person, but I'm in the closet with all the dogs trying to figure out what the fuck is the Lord's Prayer.
There's a
Oh God, what is it? I know that there's bread
Jeez.
and there's something in it.
Yeah.
Oh my
You
God,
know what?
such a dork.
Whoa, what is it? No, that I think that's like that's human
I
nature. I mean, damn. What is it? What was that?
what do they say in the military that
It's
like
there's no
nobody's?
there's no such thing as an atheist in a trench.
That's it. That's
That's
it.
because, yeah,
Yes, and I know.
even the hardest atheist is there, like trying to figure that same shit out, like trying to pray. Do you remember that movie, The Mummy? Do you remember that, the first Mummy?
Love that
Okay,
movie.
do you remember
Yeah.
Benny? How he's sitting there and he's praying because the mummy's walking to him. And he's got like all these different like
Yeah,
chains and
yeah,
stuff to
yeah.
him, and he's like going through all these different prayers. Like, yeah, that was you that day.
It was me. I called my dad the next day, and he was laughing. He's like, Colleen, there's just something wrong with you.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think it's human nature to like. I think everybody reaches out to their creator at some point. Even like the most.
Yeah, but it's like not even something that I believe
Well,
in.
no, I think that human, and I will say this: human beings are created to worship something. You know,
Oh, I guess.
So even if you weren't a believer, I think that like something in your nature, like kind of calling out to something,
Well,
and
I went to a Lutheran school, so most of my education was in a Lutheran school. So I think it just like this flashback to like sitting in a pew, and that's probably why I'm so like totally anti-religion now, because we got paddled all the time, and you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Like, I don't care what anybody believes in, it's just not for me.
yeah,
But
no,
man,
and it's
I'm in
fine.
the closet and the iron's going
Ah,
off, and I'm, shit, what is that
yeah,
bird?
what's that prayer? How did that go? All I remember
Oh
is
God, how'd that go again?
I'm over there thinking about this prayer, and then I'm having flashbacks of a paddle like coming towards me.
Oh God, it was
The
awful.
mental block. Geez. So what is? I'm trying to think of a. Okay, so I used to have a couple of friends that were from the Philippines. Okay, they were from the Philippines. They were Filipinos, and one day they're driving this like little cart, and we're together, and a black cat is walking by, about to walk in, slams on these brakes, drink where head bounces off the front of it, and I was like, Eddie, I almost said his name, and I was like, well, what's that? He's like, there's a black cat, and and I'm like, so what,
And
so what? And he's like, no,
right.
and then what? Not only did he like slam on the brakes, he had to make the he had to allow the cat to pass, and then he turned the car around and had to go the way we came, and then had to find a different direction to kind of go to
Oh
where
my
we were trying
God,
to
he wouldn't
go.
even.
No, he wouldn't, because now
Oh,
until, and this is the belief, so until like a couple hours have passed, or somebody can come and like cleanse the path where the cat was going to pass. So,
that's funny.
and it's funny, and as upset as I was, because drinks and food went everywhere, and I thought he was gonna hit somebody. I thought somebody was gonna, something, but just a black cat
Right, right, right.
had crossed the path. But I've always been like sort of like enamored with that type of like mysticism, probably because of the environment that I grew up in. But you know, as dumb as it sounds to a lot of people, like if you would have seen his face, it's for a second there, I was like, well, maybe he's onto something, because he was like really, afraid. Like he was really, he also was big on, if you spilled the salt, he had to leave the room. It
Leave the room. No, I just.
No, well, in the Philippines,
Yeah.
that's not a thing. So the salt was spilled, he'd leave. He would leave.
Wow. See, now that would be interesting for another podcast, right? Is to talk about some of this stuff from all over the world. Yeah, I'm totally I'll pinch it, put it over my shoulder, or I have some things that I do. Never, never, never put a hat on a bed ever,
Yes,
ever.
I heard that.
Do you,
I've heard that.
do you put a hat on a bed?
Well, I do. I put a hat on the bed, but
Oh,
growing up, if you were to put a hat on the bed, my father or my grandmother, oh, holy shit! To them, you might as well have taken a piss all over. They would just
well,
sweep it off the bed, lecture you of like, and this is what's nuts. They would look at you and be like, "Are you realize what you've done? This is crazy." That would get, and
you have no idea to the links I will go to if I see a hat falling and it's going to land on a bed. I have launched myself across the room. I have like a lamp, and I have some of the hats I do burning, like
yeah,
art,
yeah.
and so and I make pretty hats. And they were on this like lampshade on this lamp on my dresser, and the cat got up there or something. Anyway, all of the hats were coming off, and they were going to land on the bed.
Oh,
I have
you
launched myself across the
dope.
room to push those hats to keep them from landing on the bed.
Yeah, yeah, damn that, and that's crazy that you behave, because damn. See, now I'm getting memories. I don't know I should have looked it up, what the origin of that
Well,
is.
it's definitely a cowboy. It was originally in the United States. It was a cowboy legend. It was a legend of bad luck. Like if you put a hat on the bed, you were going to have an extraordinarily bad day around the livestock, either that day or the next day. You'd be bucked off. You'd be trampled. Something would
Something
happen.
something would happen. I could kind of see that too, like in Central America, because they have cowboys in Central America. Actually, they say that historically, cowboys originated in Central and South America before the United States. Before that, and
Sure, I would imagine.
and that's
Yeah.
where we get the term buckaroo. It comes from the term vaquero. You know. So
Really? I
yep,
didn't know
yep.
that.
It's a Spanish word.
Yeah.
It basically
Cool.
it means cowsman or like man of the
Okay.
cow. You know, vaquero.
I
So
like that. I like
so
that a lot. Yeah.
so anyway, so like if you were to put a hat on the bed, my grandmother would like sweep it off the bed, like just slap it off, and then she was so bizarre. She would get a broom and sweep around the area around the bed, and then
Oh, now see, I do that. Like, if a broom falls, that means your company's coming.
yes, yes,
And I sweep out on the first of the month. I
yeah,
sweep out this door, and then I sprinkle salt, and I do the whole thing.
the
It's a
whole
thing.
ritual. Man, that's insane.
I
See,
do.
that's crazy. The similarities because yeah, she would do the same
Yeah.
thing, or
Yeah.
if something like even the thing with the salt. Um, she would basically sweep it. So the way the houses are built over there, it's not like they're not enclosed like here. All you have is most of the time it's just three walls. You have your three, and then the roof, and then it's an open area, and usually
Huh.
there's a fence around, just something. Um, and that's the way it was. So a door would normally be like in an open court, and it's probably like a piece of where we lived. It was like a big piece of aluminum siding shaped into the form of a door. So what she would do is if anybody did something that would hinder bad luck, she would go and she would or something that would bring bad luck, she would grab her broom and she would sweep around the area and make sure to sweep the bad luck out.
Out.
Out. Yep.
Yeah, you speak.
Sweep it
Yep.
out. Sweep it out of the house.
Yep.
And if
Yep.
somebody was going to travel and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to go into the capital today," or "I'm going to go somewhere," she would grab the broom and like sweep the bad luck out. Like, okay, well, I gotta make sure you're safe. It's crazy because it's it's fun, but also there's just something so romantic about the old like ways of super. It's like that episode that I talked to you about in Salvador and how the way that people believe, and if you don't believe in the supernatural, they look at you like you're stupid, and they're like, "What is wrong with you? You don't believe in ghosts and legends and
Yeah,
bad luck and
that's
curses?"
so interesting.
And
Yeah.
and then coming, and being here in the United States, it's not present unless you're like find yourself
Right.
like amongst like, you know, group of people that believe in it. But it's just not a part of society, and it's kind of sad, because I miss that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, in the I was in the Navy, as you know, and there's a whole bunch of myths and legends associated with sailing.
Yeah.
And so I had talked to you a little bit before we started recording on them, and one of the ones that I heard constantly was you never whistle on board a ship.
Yes. Yep. I've heard that one.
Because whistling will cause wind,
Yeah.
and it will cause a big storm. And back in the days when it wasn't an aircraft carrier, it was just, it was a vessel, just a
Yeah.
ship. It could capsize you, right? But when you got into what they call the horse latitudes, where there's sometimes no wind.
Yeah.
So you'd whistle to try to bring the wind.
Yeah, and there's where you get all the type of old songs like the Drunken Sailor and all that kind of stuff. It's just getting people to whistle or it's great, but you don't want to overdo it. A lot of the
Yeah.
times they would do like we're doing two songs, and then that's it. We're only because you don't want to bring in a storm, and it was just so. Or sometimes you had a designated whistler, which was usually an older gentleman, or even this is what's crazy. Okay, so they believe, and it's probably like on one of your notes, but they believe that bringing women onto a ship was bad luck.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. Number one was, and this is, I don't know if this is true because this is just like hearsay, but I like to believe it's true. That one time, Blackbeard brought his nagging wife onto the ship, and back then it wasn't like when you were going somewhere, it took months sometimes, and he brought his ship. That's it. Some people believe that that's why Blackbeard became a pirate, was to get away from his nagging wife. Because
Maybe.
if you look at the history of Blackbeard, like he was a wealthy guy, and he was wealthy. He had been, and then he just got into the pirate business, and he became brutal. But a lot of people were like, he hates his nagging wife. So one day he brought her on the ship, and it was so miserable for everybody that after that, jump again. I don't know
Yeah,
how true this
I
is, but I
don't
say
know.
some people were like in it. But then some women, geez, I would want to jump off a damn ship if women nag me enough. But so
Well,
that carried on like to modern day.
yeah, I think I think more of it had to do with the jealousy among the sailors
Yep.
and the fighting that would happen because there was a woman and
Because
everybody's vying for her
they're
attention. And then they also attributed women to bad luck because of the sirens and the mermaids, right?
yes,
So a
yes.
woman wasn't allowed to sing because then they thought
Yep,
it would,
they would it would
yep,
bring us. And you know what's interesting is I actually read this a couple of weeks ago. So, are you aware with Eric the Red? You know the famous Norseman. So Eric the Red
yeah.
had two daughters. I forgot their names. I wish I knew their names. But he would when they would go somewhere, he would bring them along, and he got a bunch of crap. Like you can't bring these girls, but he brought them because they were fierce. And I hate to burst a lot of bubbles here, but historically, like people see Vikings as like these gigantic men that would go and wage war against everybody. Vikings were average, 5'5", and also they were known to run away from battle. So when they look at a lot of remains from the Vikings and tomb, a lot of their wounds are on their back. They tend to run away. Like as soon as somebody,
Really?
yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh.
like in England, there was a famous story where they arrived, they parked their ship. Yeah, they parked their ship. They got off, and these farmers and elderly people like picked up pitchforks and they ran away, and they didn't return to that region for 30 years because they basically like waited for these
Wow.
people to die out. So, anyways, it got so bad that Eric the Red began to set fire to the ships so that the men had nowhere to run. So there's a famous story where they were see now I wish that I remember, but they arrived at some island, right? They arrived at some island and the men were complaining. They're like, "Oh, this is gonna be horrible," blah blah blah. And they get there, and the native people pick up sticks and spears, and these Vikings are running back to the ship because there's resistance, so they got to run away. And this is a famous story. One of his daughters picked up because these guys threw everything down just to run. Picked up one of their swords, started screaming at, and by the way, started screaming at lungs at these natives. They thought she was possessed, and they thought she was possessed, and they ran off. And then by the time that she got back on the ship, they did whatever they had to do. They got back on the ship. Oh no, they had to come back for her because they left. They left her there. They all just sailed off, and they had to bring a different. So then they wanted Eric the Red to sell his daughter because she like did this horrible thing. She put them all in danger, and he refused to. He loved his daughter. So there's treasures from Eric the Red. I mean, he had Leaf. He had Leaf. He had all these sons, but there was a treasure box like specifically dedicated to his daughters because he loved his daughters. But anyways,
Hmm.
so a lot of people believe that the woman curse came from that moment. That came from like they brought a woman on this ship, and then this woman was possessed by these evil spirits. So like if you bring a woman on board, you're welcoming these spirits. And that's one of the that's see, and it's hard to pinpoint, but that's one of the things is that like yeah, the women become possessed overseas. They're not supposed to go on boats. Another one is the reason why is because if a woman menstruates on the ship, she could be bringing in like sirens and all these sea monsters that smell the blood. It's just
Oh yeah, right.
yeah, it's just ridiculous, but it's awesome too at the same time. You know,
There's so many but crazy things. I was going to say bananas because that's my next shipboard myth legend. No bananas are allowed on a fishing vessel.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so and I hadn't heard this one either. Um it's because bananas are bad luck on a ship, and the belief allegedly began in the 1700s when many trading ships disappeared when sailing between the Caribbean and Spain.
Okay.
And some mariners believed the bananas they were transporting for the ships were the reason why the ships were lost at sea.
Whoa.
So it also, but one of the things that bananas can do is they release ethylene gas, and I don't know if you know that, right?
Yeah.
So if you want your fruit to ripen, you put them in a paper bag
Yeah.
and then roll the bag up, and they'll ripen like overnight because fruit releases ethylene gas. Well, bananas release a lot. So if you have them next to apples, your apples will go bad faster. So a lot of
I
times they
didn't know
will be
that.
brought down they'll be brought down into like the hole. So you have all your
Eh,
bananas stacked up, and then you have all your other fruit, and your fruit just gets rotted like that. Any fruit next to a banana they just like, it just puts them into hyper ripening mode.
Yeah, see,
That's why they have the hooks for bananas,
yes,
to keep your bananas higher than the rest of your fruit.
yeah,
So the gas is being off gassed higher than the rest of your fruit.
yeah. Same thing with those old fruit baskets. You know, the old fruit
Yep.
baskets. The rule was bananas go on top, and
Yes.
people
And so
people thought it was a
I
stupid
bought
rule.
one of those because everything was in here, like I was putting everything in my fruit bowl, and then I remembered, I'm like, oh crap. I mean, you would think I would know, this is science, and you'd think I'd know this. So I bought one with the hook, and I put my bananas on top now, and they keep a lot longer.
Yeah.
So
See,
yeah.
again, I mean, this is like before, scientific studies. People just knew shit. Like
Yeah.
I remember again. I always go back to my grand because it's such a fond like memories of her. And she was a
Yeah.
she was a very wise woman, and just things like that. She was like, bananas always go on top. And no matter, like, keep the bananas away from this, put the bananas here, and it was always like so crazy. So in El Salvador, you have banana trees everywhere.
Oh yeah.
They're everywhere, and so everybody always had an abundance of bananas. And then the bananas were separate. Like, hey, don't put the bananas go here. And I always wonder why. Like, I thought it was a habit. I thought that until I was like in my mid-20s. You know,
Well, and I wonder too if sometimes you get these big crates full of bananas, any kind of fruit really. Depending on where you're getting them from, they could contain like venomous spiders and different
yep,
things like that.
the
And so
banana spider.
somebody reaches down into the bin and then they get bit by something, and then they attribute it to bad luck,
Yeah,
you know?
just like that's the most venomous spider is the banana spider, I believe.
There's a banana spider?
Yeah, there's a banana spider.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, hundreds of people a year die in Brazil due to banana spiders.
Oh, shit.
So yes,
I get my house sprayed once a quarter for like brown recluse and all that. They'd be out every week for a banana
yeah,
spider,
yeah,
right?
every day. Just set the house on
Yeah.
fire, and you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. You know,
Make this thing a super fun site. I don't care. I don't want any spiders.
damn. You know what's crazy is now that I'm thinking about it, like so many things attributed to bananas. Like, could you imagine? Because you've ever heard? Have you heard of the Chiquita Banana War?
Mm,
So this could
I
be
don't think so.
this could be a topic for another day. So the United States found that the mountains of Central and South America were like rich with nutrients and rich with like all kinds of different stuff. Like, oh, we can, and then there was this large like grove of nothing but bananas, and they're like, we can make money off of this. So then they went to the government and they're like, hey, can we buy these resources? And they're like, absolutely. So this is yours to rent. And then the locals refused to move. They're like, we're not leaving. You don't have access to our stuff. So they launched a military campaign and started shooting people that were defending the land, trying to keep. And this is known
What?
historically as this is known historically as the Chiquita Banana War. So could you imagine, all the stuff that people talk about, like bananas are bad luck, and it's like our bananas brought foreign people in here, and they're these damn bananas
Oh my
are
God.
bringing in a war. So yeah, it's just so crazy. So many things around bananas. Also, if you eat enough bananas, you know, you can hallucinate, and if you eat a little bit more, you die. Like banana peels.
Oh, well, it's kind of funny. So it's one of my pig's favorite fruit. Like they love bananas,
Yeah.
and they peel them. They'll peel them and eat the insides. They don't eat the peels. They know instinctively not to eat them.
A lot of animals do that.
So
So when people are like, "Hey, don't drop that here because an animal can eat it and die. It's like I've never been in the woods and then see a deer fall over dead because he ate something he wasn't supposed to. We're the only idiots that do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I know, right? So, yeah, that's funny because
So,
the
did I lose you?
young animals are the ones that experiment, right? Because they don't know anything yet.
Can you
Like
hear
young
me?
calves and you know, kids go so they don't so with the local cattle around here there's an issue with selenium in certain areas um from old mines because they didn't know that selenium would be released in the waste, and so the selenium it's the young animals they figured or animals that are being shipped in from
Yeah,
selenium deficient areas, and they'll target plant species or certain plant species that'll take up the selenium into where a thimbleful of one of these plants will kill a cow like that
really?
instantly. Yes. So that's kind of what I deal with in my job. So um, animals that are being brought in from selenium deficient areas like Northern California, and then they get unloaded and they know animals know instinctively what they need for nutrients. And so they'll target those selenium those really hyper accumulated plants that will take up all the selenium. I mean, a plant normally would have like 2 or 3 parts per million, and these plants will take up 10,000 parts per million.
Yeah.
And so the cattle and the sheep will just go down and mow those things down, man, and die.
It's so crazy. A lot of things that, damn, a lot of things that we lose as like, okay, so have you ever, like, stretching is super good for us, right? It's like, oh, if you stretch, it's good. And we stop doing it. At some point, we just stop. I don't know why. Somebody has to,
Right?
somebody has to teach you to stretch or tell you to stretch. But if you look at an animal, as soon as they wake up, like a dog, the first thing he does
They
is he,
do.
he stretches.
They
Or a
stretch.
baby.
The goats will do it.
Have you ever seen a baby and a baby wakes up? The first thing they do is they just stretch,
Yeah.
and then they
Feels so good.
yeah, and and we lose that as we grow up. At some point, you just stop, and it's just like I think that we allow the culture and the civilization around us to kind of like mold us to the mechanical instead of getting away from our natural, state. So
Yeah.
now that and you said goats. Have you ever
I
heard?
want you to, yeah, I want you to
Okay,
tell this.
so have you ever heard of the Cubs goat curse?
Yeah, I do remember this. This is awesome. So go ahead and tell it.
So this was circa 1950. I want to say around 1950s. I could be wrong. So this guy goes to watch a Cub game, and he goes and he brings in his pet goat, and he's got his goat, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm gonna watch the game. My goat always comes every year, And this time, the Cubs manager was kind of like putting the whole thing together. So he's like, "No, rules have changed. You're not allowed to be here." And he's like, "But I come every," and I think he was a gypsy man. I think he might have been a gypsy, and he had his pet goat. And he's like, "I bring my goat every year. We always watch, we always watch these games, And they're like, "No, get out of here. Take your stinking goat. He stinks. We don't want him here. Just get out." And
Aww.
I think they shoved the goat too. And the guy's like,
Mm.
"Me and my goat," and so stupid. But me and my goat, we curse you. Nah. You will never win a World Series until, and people would think that that's it. It's until you apologize to my goat. Never win a World Series.
They just won a World a couple of years ago, right?
So yeah, this is what's crazy. They lost and they lost until a fan, and I don't know how true this is. This is what I heard. Until a fan tracked down the family of this guy and apologized to one of his goats.
I love that so much. I love that so much. That's so awesome.
So dumb. And but I was like, this guy, you guys need to find out who this fan was, and I'm pretty sure that it was an old woman. That's what I'm pretty sure it was, because the person ran a deli, and he had his goat with him, like outside the deli, all so people knew who he was. So they probably like track down the who owns the deli. It's
Oh,
still in the same family. Like, yeah, so and so. So they're like, okay, we can go and apologize to the
we do it
damn and
so
apologize.
awesome.
And they won a World Series. How crazy is that? Broke the curse
Well,
over.
it's kind of funny. So I grew up in aviation, and like my dad's flight suit, um, everybody has there's a zillion pockets in flight suits, right? They're like
Yep,
overalls, coveralls.
yep.
And they have all of the pockets because you have your map in there and you have all of your everything in it, right? But and
Every
everybody
tool.
has their stuff arranged the way you want it, right?
No.
But the guys that I flew with and the guys, like my dad, you never rearrange that.
Yeah. I
It's like it's always the same, and it's different from for everybody. But and I remember giving him little tiny kid, the only thing I could afford. Your mom gives you like $5 to buy somebody something for Christmas, right?
yeah.
And I bought my dad a Snoopy keychain, a little tiny Snoopy. He loved Snoopy. He loved peanuts. So
Well, yeah.
I gave
He
him
flew
this
the
little
house. He was the
Snoopy
Red
one.
Baron.
So yeah, the Red Baron. He put that in every airplane he flew. It was in every airplane he flew, that little Snoopy. And right before he passed away, he handed me the Snoopy because we were getting rid of the last plane.
Yeah.
And he said, this comes back to you now. And so I still have my little Snoopy. But he swears that it kept him safe, his little Snoopy, It's just so cool the way people the way they put so much sentiment into something, and they
Yeah.
attribute their safety and their care to whatever,
You know,
you know.
yeah, and there's something to that. I truly believe that. Even if it's something that, like, let's say you're in a bad situation and somehow you came out of it and you're fine, and then you're like, well, what did you do different? I had this coin I never had. It's like, that's got to be your lucky coin. And you put so much, and I'm not big. You know me, I'm a skeptic in a lot of things, but like recently I've been putting a lot of thought into things. I'm like, what if you put so much like positive energy into something? I think that's how cursed objects appear too. If you put so much negative energy into something, it works the same way. Really quick. I mean, and I know that this probably has nothing to do with the topic, but can you tell a story about because your mother was a pretty gifted, what would you call her, a medium?
She was a psychic and a medium and a clairvoyant. Yeah.
Can you tell the story about when she had told your dad, like, hey, don't go out or don't do this? And can you tell that story real quick?
um well, one of the incidents was, he was a test pilot for a while, and he did fly with Chuck Yeager. He flew with a lot of legendary pilots, and
Chuck
and they
Yeager
hung
from
out in the
the
same bar.
Chuck Yeager from the Blue Angels? Like,
Chuck Yeager, he
yeah,
broke the speed of sound. Yeah, he was the
yeah.
first person to break.
That dude,
Yeah.
that dude was
So they'd
badass.
hang out at the same bar out in the desert, down by Edwards Air Force
Yeah.
Base, and off topic, but anyway, a gentleman that I met a couple of weeks ago, him and his son, I found out that my dad, his dad, and Chuck Yeager all flew together.
No shit. See that
No shit. I couldn't
that
believe it. I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, that little bar they hung out. And I'm like, oh my God, yes.
see
So anyway,
that's nuts. There's no such thing as
isn't it
coincidence,
nuts? Like, what
right?
a small world. So, anyway, I okay, so my mom, she would tell us, she would have visions the night before something would happen, or the day before something would happen. She had told, I think this is a story, but she told my dad,
There's so many people. You
your
guys see that?
landing gear
Yep,
is not going to come down
that's the
tomorrow.
one.
Yeah, that's the big one. So she had told him, she goes, look, your landing gear is not going to come down tomorrow. And she goes, you're not going to be able to fix it. This is going to happen mid-flight. You're going to have to look for grass to land in.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I mean, everything checked out. He even checked the landing gear. He checked everything that morning, because he flew a lot of search and rescue missions too. So this was a search and rescue mission, and he was flying a Texas Trainer, an AT-6. And sure enough, everything checks out beautifully. He's like, the plane is in perfect condition. They leave, they go out and do the search and rescue mission. They're on their way home, and he's on final, and landing gear not coming down.
Damn.
He's like, shit. So yeah, he had to do. He thankfully the airport that he was landing at had a grass in between the runway and the taxiway, and he was able to belly down.
I would like to do an episode just on your mom. That's
oh my god, I know, right?
Because how long have I known you? Like shit, like over 5 years.
Yeah.
Over 5 years, and there's just like so many stories, and I'm like, like another great. It has nothing to do with curses, I know, guys, but it's just so easy to get sidetracked. The damn vision of the Volkswagen running out of gas.
Oh my god, yes,
like,
she was.
That's such a great story. And
yes, well, let's save that. Let's save that for another episode.
Yeah, guys.
Because that one is.
You know what?
Bananas.
That could be a Patreon episode. Just the adventures of Dottie. Can you imagine?
Oh my god. Can you imagine? I should write them all down someday. Or at least we're recording them. But yes, by the way, if you're watching this episode, we have Patreon subscribers as we talk. And we have episodes going up every week. And they're not episodes you're going to find here.
Yes.
So for a cup of coffee a month, you can get all of these extra content. And it's going to stay up forever.
Yeah. Stuff, I mean, from held cases. I'm going to do self-defense. I can even do like a review of certain self-defense gear. We could even have like some really dark paranormal, because YouTube likes to flag down a lot of like really dark content,
yes.
And the AI is always paying attention to what you say, but could you imagine like listening to some really dark shit where it's creepy, it's scary, and you don't have to worry about, YouTube one day removing it. So if you guys haven't done it yet, check it out. We'll leave the information on the page, probably on the community tab. Go ahead, and it's $5, guys. Come on,
It's $5. It's $5 a month, and
stop subscribing to those girls online, and then find something that will actually help you instead of harming you.
So the first Patreon episode, I did a really in-depth research on. I've read everything, including FBI stuff, everything that I could get my hands on for cattle mutilations. So if you want to hear all about it, go there.
And that's a big topic. You people think cattle mutilation is here in Texas, like no, it's humongous, and it goes all around the world. It's crazy. So you guys,
it's crazy.
I'm not gonna say more. You guys go check it out on Patreon. So back to
let's get back to another myth.
We're kind of getting. It's been so long.
I didn't know about this one.
It's been so long.
And this one is offensive to me.
Uh-oh.
I was born, believe it or not, with carrot red. I had red hair until about 5 years ago. And then I went through really minor skin cancer treatment where I had to do chemo cream. And within 2 weeks, I lost all the red.
Whoa.
So it was right before we met. My hair was red. And then about 2 weeks, the red was gone.
Lucille Ball red?
Blonde. Yeah.
Wow.
Actually, my mom said when she saw me, my dad said, "Yeah, who you been with?" And she's like, "You're the Scotch Irish guy." That's what are you talking about? You're the O'Hara. My grandfather was red haired. My dad had strawberry blonde hair. So we were all redheads. Even my mom was a redhead, so I don't know, it's just a running joke. But anyway, so there's a myth about sailing to avoid a redhead.
Yes.
And I don't like this. It's people with red hair are believed to be unlucky. And if a sailor was to meet a redhead before, and it doesn't say male or female, it just says a redhead, before they were to board a ship, in order to not have bad luck, they had to speak to them first.
See,
isn't that crazy?
Okay. So, damn. All right.
Is that the whole redheaded siren mermaid thing?
It's a lot of things. So they believe that a person like in medieval times, they believed that a witch would absorb like all of the devil's wisdom, and it would all go to their hair, you know. And so that so there you go. So that's like where that comes from.
My
And it's
God.
insane because it extends a lot to like I don't know how it is now, but like 10 years ago, like it extended to the military. Like shit, even being on a Navy ship and you seeing a fresh recruit with red hair, one of the first things, and especially if one of the older like one of the older drill sergeants was there, he'd be the first one to run up to him and talk to him and like say something like, "You better cover that damn head up, boy," you know. And it was just, and people are
That's
like,
funny.
and people thought that it was like he doesn't like your face, he doesn't like no, dude, like pay attention, and you realize he's going only to gingers.
You know what? That's funny because I only had to live on base for 6 months because anyway, roommate, her name was Connie, and we were both the same colored hair, like flaming red hair. And so it was Connie and myself, and we got a lot of crap all the time because of the color of our hair. But I never
Ne-
I never knew this
Never knew the
legend.
superstition, and it's really strong in the Navy. And what's crazy is that for all you Navy men, especially all you like veteran, like older Navy gen, you knew that if there's something, you know, again, there's also like no Navy ship out there that's not haunted, but like,
Oh yeah.
but like if you knew some type of curse, you wouldn't talk about it because it wasn't your like all the older people knew a little bit, but they wouldn't share it with the younger people because you know for whatever reason. And I don't know if that's lost now, but they all knew what was going on, and it was like, don't do this because it's good. But they wouldn't say it to anybody. They keep it to themselves. But if you paid attention, you kind of begin to see their quirks.
Pick up on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you picked up on it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
stuff like that. Like,
Do you have any other curses you want to
um,
talk about?
okay, damn. There's okay. Have you ever heard of James Dean's cursed car?
Oh yeah, yeah, okay, so speaking of spirits, we had an episode on that.
And
Yes.
what's crazy is when I heard that episode a while ago, and I was trying to put the pieces together. Where the car's name was Little Bastard, wasn't it? The Little Bastard, and you know he got into this car, crashed it, dead, you know, and then people were like, you know, like let's restore this car. This is the legendary James Dean car. So they restored the vehicle. First guy that buys it goes, crashes, dead, you know, and then they're like, we should restore it again. I mean, this belonged to James Dean. First
Right.
guy owns it, crashes the damn car, and is dead. So finally, somebody says, what if the car is cursed? You know what? We'll sell it for parts. You know, we'll sell this parts, you know, it's not worth it. You know, we're losing so many. So, because people are going to begin to think that this very specific make and vehicle is defective. So, we got to sell it for parts. So, this guy, I forget who it was. Some like famous racer, I almost said racist, some racist, you know, out there. Uh, he buys this legendary part from James Dean's car, and he's like, this part belonged to the Little Bastard. He puts it on his car, and the side that this part went on, I don't even remember what it was, but he was driving it, and the car rolls over on the side that the part was on, nearly dies, you know, and then
I think like the tow truck driver was
yes,
hit and killed or something.
the tow
I
truck driver
mean,
carrying this damn car, so no one would touch it. So even though they scrapped this whole damn thing, the parts, even to this day, I think that there was a celebrity actually that got one of the wheels. One of the wheels put on his car, that damn tire blows out, nearly dies. You know, that wheel that he put on there. So even now, like you can buy these parts online if you want. They're not very expensive, but no one will touch it. The mechanics won't install them. If they know the story, they're like, which car? Oh, this belongs to the Little Bastard. Yeah, you gotta find somebody else. So it's just
yeah.
so I was trying to put and I sound like an idiot a lot of times because I was trying to put together the coincidence. I'm like, what are the odds of it? And I couldn't just rack my brain. I'm like, this is crazy. So I was like, okay,
Yeah,
so,
there were so many deaths associated with that vehicle
like,
and wrecks and really just terrible things.
and what's nuts is that like I don't know if you guys know this, but with like a really expensive car like a Rolls Royce and all that kind of stuff, every single part has a serial number because they're specifically made for it. It's not made in a factory. They're not just stamping them
Right.
out. They're specifically made. So they realized that as some people before the whole thing was like looked at. So a lot of people were buying these parts for their car. As something as stupid as a spring. People are like, wait a minute, this was. And if you look at the smallest spring as a serial number, like I want that in my car. They were having like horrible accidents. And then they started like putting them together, and it's like, okay, this guy had this car part, this guy bought this guy bought that, and then they realized that they were just like spreading the curse, even to the point where they're like, okay, these parts we're gonna have to put them in a warehouse somewhere, where Indiana Jones has like all this stuff, and then no one touch them. And I was trying to figure out like the statistics of this type of vehicle, and it has a pretty clean record except this car and everything that came from this car.
Wasn't it a Porsche or something?
I don't remember what it was. I thought it could have been a Rolls Royce. It could have been a Porsche. I don't remember what it was, but I remember it was
A race. It was a fast
yes, it
race
was.
car
Yep,
type thing.
it was a very specific
But I
car
can't remember now what
that
it
was
was.
so
Yeah.
expensive that every part has a serial number on it, so you know where it
Yeah.
was made, where it's going, where it's at. So yeah, so they were able to track down where these car parts went, and every single time they were able to track it down, it was always associated because there was an accident. It was even to the point where some guy, and this is again, I don't know how verified this part is, but one of the guys had put a tire that belonged to the car, and the damn thing, the tire blew up. A piece of metal gets lodged into the tire as it goes, and it hits him right in the head, kills him.
Just bananas.
So yeah,
The whole thing is bananas.
so you got one more for us? We're kind of run down.
I got one more, and I think probably a lot of people have heard about this one.
The Curse of the Irish, a bunch of alcoholics.
Yeah, well. Let's see. Hold on. We probably all heard about that one. So let me find a different one. Oh, how about this one? You're not supposed to sail on a Friday.
Yes.
Have you heard of that?
Yes, I've heard of that one.
So Friday has historically been considered a bad day for setting sail because it's the day that Jesus Christ was crucified. Yep. I didn't know that till I read this. So Thursdays are also believed to be unlucky sailing days because it is the day of Thor, the god of thunder and storms.
So if you had a trip on so if you were gonna sail on Thursday, they believe, and this is one of those things, they believe that if you get hammered, like drunk, you would kind of like have like, okay, you have a blessing, you can go. But as long as you made sure that you were, that you were not caught like on a Friday, like still kind of,
right.
So because something bad was gonna happen, and you don't sell on Fridays. That was it. Even to this day, when you go like on one of these, there's so in the Philippines they have like these, or Vietnam, I'm sorry, in Vietnam they have like these famous like junk boats that are like these gigantic boats, and for like $5 or $10 you can take this luxury cruise and go. But the one thing is they won't sell on Fridays. It's cool. Any other days of the week they won't sell on Fridays. They don't want you to mention a boat ride. That's a big thing, is that people will go and like, why can't we sail on Friday? Like, don't talk about it. No, we don't want it to carry on to Saturday.
You're also not supposed to sail on the first Monday in April because it's the day that Cain killed Abel.
Really? I don't know how that one's verified. That one's crazy. I've never heard
I don't know either. How about the second Monday in August, because that's the day that Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed.
Again, that's...
Or you think that would be a good thing. And then December 31st, which is the day that Judas committed suicide?
Yes. That's a Catholic tradition though, so that's like only in Catholicism, so. And it's here.
Okay.
Again, you would think it's a good thing.
They're supposed to, superstitious sailors only set sail on Sundays. And also, I remember this from my days in the Navy, that you're not supposed to, if you're like a sailor's wife, but they always say sailor's wife, but I'm assuming this would go for husbands too now. Yeah. You're not supposed to wave goodbye or call after them after they get on the vessel.
Yes. Yeah.
You're supposed to turn your back and just walk away.
Turn your back and walk away until you're only able to see the vessel and you can't like see who's like if,
Make out their faces.
yeah, make out their faces. Because that means, and this is one of the beliefs. They believe that the next time you're gonna see that face is when he comes back dead, or something like that. It was so like it's so that's why you see like in old movies or like in old when you see a ship sailing away, no one is waving; they're just staring into as the hair, as the wind blows, and they're just staring.
Yeah.
And then finally, once you can barely see the ship, will they raise their hand to say goodbye? It's so romantic. Jeez.
Well, there's a Celtic legend about you never look and watch somebody leave.
Yeah.
You never watch somebody leave and drive away or ride away or anything like that. So you say your goodbyes and then you turn your back.
Yep,
and
then you walk off. You don't look back. The other one is in probably a lot of people know this, but if somebody gives you a knife or a sword, anything with an edge, unless you have something to trade for it, like a coin or whatever it is, you do not accept the gift. Because that not only does that mean it's gonna cut your friendship and something horrible will happen, or that person's gonna die.
Or you never close a knife that you haven't opened.
Yes.
If somebody opens,
somebody
right?
opens a knife, you hand it back.
You hand it back so that they can close it.
In a very specific way too. You can't grip the handle, because if you grip the handle, you're like basically aiming the weapon. That's why like in old shows like Highlander, you remember that it was like a movie, Highlander, the Immortal.
I remember that.
So
that's a while.
The way that you hand the sword to somebody is you put your hands underneath like this, and then you like present it.
Yeah, and you take the sword.
Yep, and then that's how you do it, because there's a superstition that if somebody hands you a sword and you grip it, that means that one day you will turn that sword against them. Because it's a form. Yeah, it's crazy, but again, so romantic. So that's why and this is one of those things that we've covered in the past, is how the hell are the coincidence where they have like the same, like in Japan, you're never allowed to hold the handle or the hilt of a sword when you hand it to somebody. That's why when it's always presented, some guy is down on one knee and he hands it to you like this, and then you lightly take the sword. And if he unsheaths it, he hands you the scabbard and the sword, and then you take you can analyze it and you look at it, but you're not allowed to close it yourself. You have to hand it all back, and then the guy takes the blade and then she shuts it. Places like Japan, in India, that's the same thing. So then I wonder, I'm like, did somebody hear about this and took it to those lands, or is it something that everybody discovered themselves?
No, so many places. That's such a good topic, because so many places have variations of the same myths and legends. So was it because people were sailing and they shared them, or I don't know.
I'm drunk.
And who's to know? Who's to know, right? Because there aren't any records.
Yeah, so, and who knows? We talked about this with a black dog. Like, what are the odds? Every single damn culture out there has a black dog.
Black dog, yeah.
Black dog. This was a great episode. It's been a while.
I liked it.
Since it's just been me and you, and
and
it's nice. Without the crazy kids, without the crazy haywire and the crazy dirty birdie. The old school host. So, anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Like and subscribe, share the show. Again, the Patreon information is on the page. If you guys want bragging rights, if you guys want to be like, hey, I got what did you listen to on Nightmare Road? I listened to a special one. I didn't hear that one. Oh, you don't have, bro? You don't have the membership? You're not getting the exclusive content? What are you getting, the free stuff? It's so good. So anyway, you guys can head on over to Patreon, become a donor. You guys won't be disappointed. We're gonna have so much stuff out there. Eventually, like when we have a huge library, it'll seem like a bargain. You guys will believe that you're stealing from us. That's how good the deals are. So, anyways.
Yep.
Like and subscribe,
All
share the
right.
show, and remember, guys, to always look both ways, especially if you find yourself on Nightmare Road.